Welcome to Vibe Check, a series where we talk about your favorite games and the emotions you feel through their mechanics. Today we're looking at a game I'm sure a lot of you out there are super familiar with, but one I only dove into for the first time recently. That's not to say I've never played Skyrim before, but this is the first time I really dedicated myself to playing a character for more than 10 to 20 hours. And I had to make this video because I felt so many conflicting feelings during my first Skyrim deep dive. I think it's best to start with the positives. There's a bunch of different aspects of Bethesda games that come together to make them feel uniquely Bethesda. I think the aspect that stands out above all others, though, is the world. It truly feels like Skyrim's world is limitless. I mean, it isn't. You know that. You know that if you walk in any direction long enough, you'll hit the world border. But within the bounding box of the game's map, it feels like there's so much to discover, more than any one person ever could. I'm roughly 90 hours into my most recent playthrough. I've spent a lot of time doing quests and just exploring. Look at how many map markers I have. But think about how many map markers are undiscovered out there. Look at this big empty space around Rorikstead. Even after 90 hours on this character, I still have so much more to see. There are 195 locations in the game that can be cleared. Clearing a location differs from place to place, but it usually entails you beating a boss. It's so satisfying to reach the end of a long dungeon and see that big old chest at the end. And there's just so many to find out there. So many dopamine hits to be found in dungeons like this. As tantalizing as the loot at the end of the ride is, that's not just why you clear dungeons. You clear dungeons because you like engaging with the game's systems. You like how it feels to swing a sword, cast a spell, shoot someone with an arrow. Engaging with the game on a fundamental level like that is satisfying. And it doesn't get more fundamental than the game's skills. There are 18 of them, and they each have their own little use case. The way you pick and choose which to focus on makes your playthrough unique. During my most recent playthrough, I stuck with a relatively simple one-handed weapon and heavy armor build. But I also mixed a little conjuration in there, summoning a follower to help fight in a battle, or even a weapon to fight with. I also used restoration spells a lot. That was my little twist on the traditional heavy armor one-handed warrior. And I know I'm not unique. It's a sheer numbers game. Skyrim sold like 60 million copies. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of players probably dabbled in conjuration as a warrior. But it felt unique to me, and that's all that matters really. I was able to take an iconic character archetype, the melee warrior, and tweak it just a tiny bit to fit the playstyle I wanted. Skyrim is free form in that way. You aren't picking skills to focus on at the beginning of the game. You level up skills as you use them, and slowly whittle away at your character, making them more unique as time goes on. Maybe you start out as an archer, doing archer things. Then, as any Skyrim player does, you turn into a stealth archer. But then, maybe you dabble in illusion. At first you use it for muffle, so you can sneak around better. Then maybe you start casting fury on enemies to start them infighting, and use your bow to pick off the stragglers. That could be considered its own subclass in any other game, or my conjuration and restoration warrior. But Skyrim isn't interested in putting a label on you. You're not an archer illusionist. I'm not a warrior mage. Our characters are just themselves. The game is so open in that it lets you explore what you want your character to be as you play. You can mess around with different playstyles whenever you want, and you're not penalized for it. But wait, that's not 100% true. You can use any weapon type on any character. You can start using a new spell school when you're at level 50 if you really wanted to. but you're fighting an uphill battle if you do that. In the early game, you're free to experiment as you want. You're given tools to explore all the different combat styles in the game's first dungeon. You are literally a blank slate as you exit Helgen. All your skills are at 15 or so, dungeons are scaled to your level. The world is ready for you to build up your character. But what happens if you want to swap to another combat style at level 20? Well, now you find yourself in a predicament. Let's say you invested into one-handed after leaving Helgen, and let's also say that your one-handed skill is at 60 or so. That's a lot of time you've spent using one-handed weapons. Each point in the skill gives you a 0.5% increase in damage, so you're doing 30% more on top of your weapon of choice's base damage. You've probably put at least 3 points into Armsman, because you like doing even more damage. And maybe you put 2 points into Hack and Slash, because bleeding means even more damage. Then, on a whim, you decide you want to become a greatsword character. Maybe you saw this badass render of Cloud Strife, and you want to be just like him. After all, Skyrim is an open game. You didn't sign up to be a one-handed warrior at character creation. Just start using a greatsword. It'll be fine. Enemies in this game scale. Kinda. It's complicated, I don't really want to dive into it, but just know you'll be fighting harder enemies as the game goes on. And you, picking up a greatsword for the first time, you'll be doing as much damage as you would have at level 1 in Helgen. Admittedly, you might have access to better swords via vendors or crafting, but honestly, that's not where most of your damage comes from. It's from you leveling up the skill itself and investing in perks. And you're just boned if you've already invested a bunch into another skill. All those perk points thrown into one-handed earlier are literally useless if you fully switch to the greatsword. Now, I should say, you can retrieve spent perk points in the game, but you have to beat the final DLC to do it. It's not meant to be an early game thing. And even then, if you do reset your one-handed tree to get all those perk points back, your skill in two-handed isn't high enough to unlock most of those perks. You can't cheese your way out of it. You're gonna have to be fighting a bunch of stronger enemies with weapons that aren't doing a whole lot of damage. That's the mid-game. You're finding some okay weapons and armor, but you're still pretty squishy. What about the late game, where you have multiple skills already maxed out? At that point, there's an incentive to branch out. I reached level 100 in one-handed pretty quickly, and when I did, I had this realization. I'm doing a lot of damage with my sword here, but every swing I take, every enemy I kill, I'm wasting XP. Precious XP that could be used to gain perk points that I still need. So I felt this push to branch out to other combat styles. Two-handed, destruction, archery, anything to just make sure I'm gaining XP. Which feels weird, right? Like my character spent his whole journey mastering the short sword. It's been his weapon of choice. But as soon as he truly masters it, he swaps to a weapon he has no experience with. I feel like the player should be incentivized to stay with the weapon style their character is familiar with. After all, you are playing a character. Characters, as a fundamental concept, are defined by their unique factors. Think of any character in media, and you think of their attributes that make them special. Even just sticking inside Skyrim, you can find a ton of people that have their own little niche. That's what all the guilds in the game are about. It's all the people who act and fight in a certain way coming together to feel a sense of camaraderie. Warriors might find their way to the Companions, thieves to the Thieves Guild, bookworms to the College of Winterhold. You get the idea. In older Elder Scrolls games, you built a character at character creation. Take Daggerfall for example. You pick your race, which every Elder Scrolls game lets you do, but then you go really in-depth. You pick skills your character is proficient in, and decide to what degree they're proficient in them. You give them special advantages and disadvantages. You decide their reputation with the people of the world. By fine-tuning these, you can really create a detailed character. When you exit the tutorial dungeon and get into the world, you have a set of guiding principles to get you through the game. You don't have that in Skyrim. Literally all character creation is in Skyrim is picking a race and altering their appearance. There's no big choices you have to make in regards to how you want to play the game at this moment. The race you pick does have some effect on your playstyle, but honestly not much. You could pick the Wood Elf, a class that specializes in archery, and become a two-handed warrior. The bonus it gives you is just a little head start, more than anything else. In Daggerfall, you can specialize yourself like crazy. Giving yourself advantages and disadvantages at character creation is basically a balancing act. You can give yourself complete immunity to paralysis, but you bet your ass you're gonna have to make up for that in disadvantages. Maybe make yourself weak to poison, decrease your accuracy against animals. You can even restrict yourself from equipping certain materials. Like you can make it so you just can't equip iron weapons or armor. That'd be a stupid idea for the early game, but once you find more powerful gear, you wouldn't want to equip that iron stuff in the first place. So that could be a powerful disadvantage to give yourself some more advantages. The choices Daggerfall forces you to make at character creation are so interesting, and there is none of that in Skyrim. You can literally become a jack of all trades in this game, swapping between one-handed weapons, bows, and magic all in one combat encounter. Towards the late game, as you get more perk points to spread out, that's more likely to happen. There's this weird inverted bell curve of experimentation where at the beginning of the game, you're free to try whatever you want. Later on, you're doing alright damage, but you're pretty squishy. But after that, you get to experiment more as you enchant powerful armor to keep you alive in fights longer, and make you do more damage with skills you're less invested in. Once you reach that late part of the game, where you've beaten the main story, finished all the guild quest lines, and done a lot of dungeon clearing, you lose that identity you once had. You're not just an archer who used illusions sometimes. You're a bow guy, and a sword guy, and a destruction guy, and a conjuration guy, and a blah blah blah. I have a lot of problems with Skyrim at its core, but I can't stop playing it. I acknowledge that Skyrim pushes you to be a jack of all trades, that there's this weird progression in terms of playstyle openness that are removed a lot from previous games. But it's still damn fun to explore a dungeon. It's fun to whack Draugr with a sword, to shout them into a wall, to turn them against their own kind. I feel that pull in both directions with this game. Even in this video, where I feel like I should take a strong stance, I can't. Previous Elder Scrolls games were role-playing playgrounds. You could spend an hour fine-tuning your character to literally be one of a kind. And once you got in-game, all your character's skills, advantages and disadvantages, as well as their reputation, all those are guiding principles that tell you how your character would act if they actually existed. Skyrim doesn't want to be that kind of game. It's a playground, like the older games, but not quite in the same way. It's a power fantasy playground. It wants you to become an all-powerful being who masters every skill they set their mind to, where you can become a renowned member of every guild in the region, where you can live out your days as the super special, chosen one. Outside of the narrative, the game wants you to have fun mastering all the different skills, to be able to see nearly all the written content possible on one character, to slowly accumulate more power and feel like you can take on any foe. It's a power fantasy, plain and simple. I'm not going to act like older Elder Scrolls games didn't have that facet to them, but it's much more prevalent in Skyrim. If you want to come up with your own headcanon for your character about what they can't use or who they interact with, that's fine. But Bethesda isn't going to make you do it. Hell, they're not even going to give you the in-game option to force that on your character. It's all in the name of streamlining and letting the player build their character themselves through gameplay. So while I'll occasionally have a little bit of a whinge about Skyrim and player freedom, I can't deny that it really accomplished what it was going for. It feels good to play as the Dragonborn in Skyrim. Quick vibe check on the Vibe Check series. Let me know what you think about this video or the format as a whole in the comments. And check out my video on Tears of the Kingdom to see me talk a little more about player freedom. Or watch this random video. I dare ya. Thanks for watching and see you next time.